Hey, what's up? This is Flight Night. I learned a lot of muscle memory and got over a lot of skill barriers by playing with simulators. I'm still fairly new to FPV, but I believe that these simulators have taught me a lot more and saved me a lot of money by not having to go through breaking stuff and spending a lot more time fixing things than I already have. In downtime when weather's bad or I'm waiting on parts or this or that, simulators are also just a perfect thing for me. And hopefully my information will help you out, and I won't ramble too much. But first thing I'm going to start off with is the one that I like the most. I like FPV Event PE. I will put the link down to their website in the description. But it has a lot of positives rather than negatives. Uh, Best feel out of any of the simulators that I have played so far, and I think I've played about 5 or 6 different simulators, and they just added the capabilities of changing. I don't believe it's mass. I think it's drag and whatnot. But the gravity and how the quad responds to the sticks and just in default, mix is great. It's the best thing. It's the closest to reality that I have felt in any of these simulators, and that is the reason that you use a simulator. You don't play it just for graphics, for it to look good, or just to show off. You do it to be closest to reality to create muscle memory that you don't have to think about when you're using, your short life lipo, only having 3 or 4 minutes in the air. It's hard to create muscle memory a lot of the time. But with these simulators, it is a good way to test things out and to create that muscle memory for yourself. The tracks in FPV event are awesome. It seems like they're real tracks, or at least some of them are. The actual events that have happened over in the UK, um, some of them are really challenging. Also, I just had my first official event that I went to a week or two ago, and I felt overprepared. I was ready to fly through the smallest gates and whatnot. But I didn't have to deal with that, and I felt overprepared because of this simulator. I had a lot of frustrating times at the beginning starting to play this, but looking back at some of my old recordings to how I'm flying around in it now, and looking at my times versus now, I can only say positive things about how this has taught me to the muscle memory it's taught me when I'm trying to go fast and hit small, precise gates. Uh, the responsiveness of the developer or developers, I'm not sure if it's one or multiple people, but he answered every single one of my questions, and he was realistic about it too. There was things that I was not upset about, but it limited me to how I used this simulator, and he completely understood and changed them. Not immediately, but they did change everything that we were saying in the forums. Now, the forums isn't the most beautiful forums there are. It's not a huge thing, and you know, who cares about that flashiness? It's down to the nitty gritty and how how they hear you out and how they make it work. And it's very rare you get developers like that, and this is definitely one of those occasions. Uh, Best graphics in any of the simulators, to be honest. You don't really worry about graphics and simulators, in my opinion. I'm not here to make it look flashy, and when you're flying FPV in reality, running off analog video signal, it's very staticky, really crappy. So I don't care if it looks good or not. But this does run off the Unreal Engine, I believe, and it is, when you get it dialed in, it looks sharp. They do have auxiliary channel mapping, but I don't use that, so I can't really say anything about it. The only negatives I can say about FPV event have all been taken care of. The only thing I can really say at this time is the price. The price scale is pretty harsh compared to everything else. It's like $4 a month or $40 outright, and if you just buy it outright, you get access to 10 tracks, and then past the 10 tracks, I believe you have to pay for it. I don't think he's gotten to that 10 track mark yet, so you can't really say how much they're going to be. But in my opinion, when I'm trying to be serious and create serious muscle memory, this is the simulator that is my go to. Next in line is FPV Freerider. This is one of the ones that I started off with. The original was $5, and the newer one, I can't remember the name off my head. It's Reloaded or something like that, and it's $10. And because I bought the original one in the first like 10 or 20 days, they gave you the option to buy the new one for $5 because you'd already spent $5 to pay for the original. And it's the same thing, just run on a different engine. I think there's a different track or whatnot. But really cool of the developer to do that. They didn't have to do that. Uh, there's no limit on how far you can go away in Freerider. Uh, you know, realistically and unrealistically, you're not going to be flying forever away. But it's annoying when you're trying to create muscle memory and do certain things that you're limited by the stupid ceiling, or just even just being having the ability to take that off is a nice option. Um, there's some cool obstacles. It keeps it interesting in Freerider. And there's also a line of sight mode, which I will have to say all of my line of sight skills have came from this simulator. That is 100% the truth. And I don't really use line of sight a lot right now, but it is useful when you're tuning. So just having the muscle memory and how to control your quad while you're flying line of sight is good. So I always flip to Freerider and mess around with that every once in a while just to make sure to keep that feeling and those muscle memories still there. The only thing I can say bad about Freerider is the sound. The sound is freaking horrible. I always just turn it off. So that isn't a make or break deal to me in a simulator though. Liftoff is probably the one that has the most room for improvement and probably the most popular, so it has the most ability to bring people to the sport and get people involved. And the only reason I'm going to be harsh on this is because I feel that they're doing so many things that need to be correct in the simulator wrong. The positives of Liftoff is that it is on Steam, so it does have a lot of face time to people. It can get a lot of people in, and it is an early access title, so please keep that in mind while I'm saying the things I am about Liftoff. Uh, with it being an early access title, they do say there's multiplayer going to be involved. So let's hope that comes through. I would really like to see that. That would make that jump up on my list, but I still won't use it as a serious simulator if it doesn't feel correct. This game is very floaty, and as you see, there's not really many options for changing gravity or mass or angular drag or anything like that. They have options for PIDs, which I don't know how much that really matters in a game where it's floaty as it is. It doesn't seem like they're concentrating on the correct things as far as that goes. If you jump into the workbench and change stuff, like I did here the other day when I was capturing this footage, I mean, I made my quad unflyable just by giving it a better battery and giving it better motors. Uh, I don't understand, and I was trying going back to my original, changed a few things like the propellers from my original, and it still was just like unflyable. Uh, Very disappointing as far as that goes. I'd like to see a workbench that actually worked, and not just a workbench that had a bunch of brands and labels on it. And some of the brands that I saw I'd never even seen in real life, out and about at competitions and flying with people. But I've had a lot of Tyrannus issues here recently also with Liftoff. 2 updates ago, if I go full throttle, I lose complete control. I've asked the developers about this, and it wasn't even the developer, it was some moderator said that he has not had this problem. So I would say like, hey, maybe it's something on my end, but FPV Freerider also runs off the same profile as I use for Liftoff, and there's no problem with that now. So the variable has to have come from Liftoff and its patch and whatnot. The OSD in Liftoff just kind of seems weird. I don't have a OSD that shows levelness, or I don't know what the parameter is for seeing where your level is. The video that I have seen of other people using that type of OSD, it's always very laggy. The latency is very high, so I don't understand really how useful that is. That's another thing that you're going to train people to have there, and of all likelihood, someone's not going to put the extra device in there to give you that information sent to the OSD. Also, they've added a third-person mode, and it seems like the last two updates have really been about graphics. I don't care about a third-person mode. I'm never going to fly my quad in a third-person mode. I've seen someone do that in a video on YouTube, just like, attaching like a wood mount to the back of their quad just to mess around. But in a simulator setting where I'm trying to create muscle memories and better myself, I'm never going to want to fly third-person mode. I don't see. Now, line of sight would be awesome, like in Freerider, but third-person, I do not see how that applies to this hobby. Really, besides that, it has a lot of room for potential. The multiplayer, it being on Steam, but it just seems like there's just a few simple things that they could add to make this game so much better. Like allow me to change the gravity settings in it, like Freerider. Allow me to change the mass and the angular drag, because I'm not flying a vortex. This seems like that's all they're trying to push is the vortex frames, and I don't know how accurate that is to this, but I know a vortex isn't floaty. I know the gravity isn't that much different. So hopefully they change a lot of that. I would love to fly multiplayer with friends, but I will say I'm not going to step back to a simulator that isn't simulating what I'm trying to do. And with that being said, thank you guys for listening, and let me know in the comments below if I got anything wrong, or if you want to chime in about any points that I missed. And yeah, keep moving this hobby forward. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the air somewhere. Until then, be safe flying. Take it easy. Flight Night over and out.
They all looking like numbers, but you're not the same. With your serial code, it takes time to load. Save it to my database and we can do it face to face.
Girl, I've seen it all before. I just wanted something new. You're the poison, you're the cure. You're my favorite drug to do. As I complete the same machine.